This short tutorial on self-identification for Qalipu applicants was prepared for the Friends of Qalipu Applicants group page on Facebook. It was not prepared by the Qalipu Band or by Aboriginal Affairs. It is simply intended to help applicants understand self-identification and the various ways of documenting it. This tutorial will attempt to answer the following questions about self-identification. What does it mean to self-identify? Who needs to show proof of self-identification? How do I show proof of self-identification? And why bother to self-identify? The documents I will reference here include the November 2013 insert that arrived with your November letter and the June 2013 supplemental agreement, especially Section 8, Self-Identification as a Member of the Mi'kmaq Group of Indians of Newfoundland. These documents are available on the websites for Aboriginal Affairs and Qalipu. First, it would be useful to talk briefly about what self-identification means more generally in Canada with respect to Aboriginal people. At the basic level, it simply means asserting your personal identification as an Aboriginal person, to basically be saying, I am Mi'kmaq. The ways this can be asserted include identifying yourself as Aboriginal on forms like school or job applications, census forms, health forms, etc., or by publicly participating in Aboriginal activities that are then documented by news sources. Regarding census figures, based on the 2006 census, Canada's Aboriginal population grew by 45% in just one decade. The number of Aboriginal people in Canada now exceeds 1 million. Analysts accounting for the surge point to two possibilities. A high birth rate among Aboriginal people is one possibility, but the more plausible explanation is an increase in self-identification. The Globe and Mail characterizes this increase as a policy time bomb that will continue and will eventually force social and educational improvements. These are just a few examples why self-identification is important in general in Canada. But what does it mean specifically for Qalipu, and why do we have to demonstrate it? It's important to recognize the unique situation for Qalipu, or for any Newfoundland Native group being the first generation to attempt to gain status. Qalipu applicants do not have ancestors with status. One of the requirements of the Indian Act is that an applicant for federal status must have at least one parent with status. We cannot meet that requirement simply because of how Newfoundland joined Canada, with Joey Smallwood claiming that there were no Native people on the island. So during the negotiations, the government and the FNI established an application process that sidesteps some of the normal status requirements. But they looked for a legal precedent to use, and they found it in a 2003 Supreme Court decision, the results of which have become known as the Powley test. This case is considered a landmark in Métis Aboriginal rights in Canada. In the decision, 3 criteria were established to determine Aboriginal identity for non-status people: ancestry, self-identification, and group acceptance. And if we look at Section 8 of the June 2013 Supplemental Agreement, we find a specific reference to this case. In making the agreement, the parties were guided by the Supreme Court of Canada's decision in R.V. Powley, where the court recognized that belonging to an Aboriginal group requires at least 3 elements: Aboriginal ancestry, self-identification, and acceptance by the group. Now, how do we demonstrate self-identification for our Qalipu applications? And who needs to provide evidence of self-identification? We can look at page 2 of the insert pages that came with your November letter, Part A, Demonstration of Self-Identification. Pursuant to the 2008 agreement, applicants are required to demonstrate that as of September 22, 2011, the date of the recognition order creating the Qalipu Mi'kmaq First Nation, they had self-identified as members of the Mi'kmaq Group of Indians of Newfoundland. Member is defined in the 2008 agreement as someone having a current and substantial connection with the Mi'kmaq Group of Indians of Newfoundland. Applicants who signed their applications on or before September 22, 2011, and who completed Part 2 of the application form are considered to have self-identified as members of the Mi'kmaq Group of Indians of Newfoundland. These individuals are not required to take further action or to provide additional documentation to demonstrate self-identification. So what this means is that if you submitted your application after September 22, 2011, you must provide documentation to demonstrate self-identification. So please read page 2 of that insert very, very carefully. So where are we going to find proof? Several possibilities are listed for you in that insert, and they include the membership lists of the pre-Qalipu bands in Newfoundland, copies of census forms from 2006 or earlier, news articles, certified true copies of application forms in which you identified yourself as Aboriginal, and other relevant documents either submitted to or issued by a government, a public institution, or a Newfoundland Mi'kmaq organization. Now regarding these band lists, and when I talk about this, I am talking about the pre-Qalipu local band lists and the FNI list. I am not talking about the Qalipu Founders List. If you were, or believe you were, a member of one of the local bands prior to the Qalipu application process, the first thing you should do is call Aboriginal Affairs to verify that your name appears on the lists that were provided to them at the time of the agreement. The number appears here, and also in the insert to your November letter on page 2. If you are told that your name is not on the list, but you believe it should be, your next step is to call or email the Corner Brook office at the contact information listed here and ask for a name search. They will ask you to fill out a request form and then to email or fax it back to them. And this contact information is also available on the Qalipu website. And if you're trying to get a copy of a census form to verify that you self-identified on the 2006 census or on an earlier census, here's the contact information for Statistics Canada. And this information also appears on page 2 of your November insert. Here's an example of what a census form would look like. In this example, the person claimed non-status Aboriginal and member of a band. This type of documentation can be used to demonstrate your self-identification. Another example listed in the guidelines is a newspaper article. There probably aren't too many of us who would fall into this category, but this is a clear example of self-identification. This is from a 2004 article from Down Home magazine. The three people pictured here, Liddy McDonald, Violet Benoit Dawson, and Ben White, have their names listed over to the right. This is evidence of self-identification, being publicly featured in a news article as an Aboriginal person. What are some other ways people have self-identified? This is an example from my own school. It's an ad campaign trying to get students to declare their Aboriginal ancestry in the student accounts pages online. This poster depicts a Métis young man, and it indicates that 1,700 students had already self-identified as Aboriginal, and that number today is now well over 2,000. This is the self-declaration page that I submitted online when I entered the University of Saskatchewan in the fall of 2007. As you can see, I checked off non-status Indian and then named my community. I entered the Federation of Newfoundland Indians, my local St. George's band, and I indicated that I am Mi'kmaq. And then I even added, in 2008, just below, soon to gain status as the Qalipu Mi'kmaq First Nation. So if you are a person who self-identified in a registration database such as this, you can request a certified copy from your school's registrar. And that brings me to a caution. Please read that November insert very carefully. In some examples, the guideline indicates copy, while in other examples it indicates that you need a certified true copy. These are two different kinds of copies. A certified true copy is a duplicate copy of a document that has been stamped and signed as a true copy of that original document. The stamp and sign must be from a person authorized to take oaths, such as a Commissioner of Oaths, Justice of the Peace, or a notary. So what you would do is make a copy of your original document, a photocopy, and then take both the original document and the copy to the notary or the commissioner for certification. That person is going to inspect both of the documents and make sure that one is an exact copy of the other, and then they're going to put their stamp and seal signature on that for you. These are some examples of what the certification stamp might look like. It might be put in the corner of your copy, it might be put on the back, but it must be there somewhere with the official signature in order to be considered a certified true copy. Now, what if you've read the guidelines, you've listened to these examples, and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, what if I can't prove anything for self-identification? Do not give up. You have absolutely nothing to lose by getting creative and providing what you can at this point. Some people have chosen to write their own narratives with details of their lives that parallel the Mi'kmaq way. If you are unable to provide actual documentation of self-identification, this is something that you might consider doing. Also, if you've ever talked to anyone about being Mi'kmaq, even if not officially, ask them for an affidavit. What if you're still thinking, isn't it useless at this point to self-identify? No, it is not useless. Your application materials are legal documents. It's really important to remember that. Self-identify now and submit your packet, even if you fear you will not meet the criteria. Because if future groups form, with future negotiations with the government, your Qalipu application materials are very solid legal proof of self-identification. So make your decision based not just on the present event, but also for your own future. You have nothing to lose. And perhaps the most convincing reason to self-identify now, even if you fear you can't prove it for before, relates to the guidelines governing the appeals process. In Section 6 of the 2013 June Supplemental Agreement, Appeals, it states, an applicant shall not have any right to appeal from a decision of the Enrollment Committee denying an application on the grounds that the name of the applicant or either of the applicant's parents is not on one of the lists mentioned in paragraph 24.2.1 of the Enrollment Guidelines, and the applicant has not submitted any objective documentary evidence on self-identification under any of paragraphs 24.2.2 to 5. Basically what this means in a nutshell is that if you do not address self-identification in your application materials, and you were supposed to, you will lose your right to appeal any decision that's handed down by the Enrollment Committee. So please keep this in mind when you're making a decision. Now a few reminders. Reread page 2 of the November 2013 insert that came with your letter. Read it very carefully. Determine whether you need copies or certified true copies. If in doubt, just get certified true copies. Whatever document you are submitting, remember to put your file number from your November letter on it. And if you are submitting documents for self-identification only, you do not need a sworn declaration. And I'd also like to add that generally speaking, you also do not need affidavits for self-identification. If you are finding documentary proof, you send in those documents. Now, if you're a person who fears that they don't have the documentation and you've decided to do a personal narrative or to get some other person to swear that you did self-identify, in that case you would be using affidavits. But in general terms, affidavits are not required for self-identification. For more information, visit the Friends of Qalipu Applicants group page for sample documents, sample scenarios, and interaction with other Qalipu applicants.